Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. So glad to have you here today. Happy Wednesday, wherever you are in the world. I'm assuming it's either Wednesday or Thursday, right? So, welcome to our weekly series. As I mentioned before, you've probably read the description. If not, if you're in the right place, I just want to make sure you're in the right place. I am Deborrah Ashley, the LinkedIn Black Belt. And today I'm going to share with you 5 keys to sales success for 2022 or going into Q2 because we're right around the corner for Q2, right? So just a little bit about me. Obviously, I am a LinkedIn strategist, expert, and trainer, and I help my clients be able to leverage every little aspect of LinkedIn in order to reach their individual and organizational goals. So today I'm going to share with you some tips that you can use. And I tend to see a lot of people using LinkedIn in different ways, but I want you to become more strategic with using LinkedIn, with using your content, with leveraging your network. And today I want to share some ways that you can do just that, especially if you're in specific areas that you're attracting potential clients, customers, employees, top talent, things like this. This can all be leveraged in that way. If you're joining us live right now, go ahead and share in the comments who you are and where about in the world you're joining me from. I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first thing that we want to do, though, is I'm going to do a somewhat of a slide deck just to show you examples. We're not always a fan of just talking heads, right? So while you're sharing this broadcast with others, and you're also sharing with me who you are, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch it over to the slide deck, and then we can get started. So let's give me 1 second. If we do it right, this will work out just fine. All right, let's make sure you can see me. This is going to be a little on the smaller end. All right, I think this should be fine. And if you cannot see this, okay, just let me know, okay? If you cannot see this, okay, then of course, I would love for you to be able to let me know. Let's get this sorted to the first. All right, we are good to go. I think my face is in the way a little bit. I'll try to move it over. So, like I mentioned, this is 5 keys to B2B sales success. What I'll share today is really how to now leverage LinkedIn every step of the way for your client's journey in order to make sure that they notice you. So, the things that we'll go over today, let's focus on the few things that we're going to cover today. We'll do an overview of the buyer's journey. That's going to take maybe about 2 minutes, not too long. We're going to talk about considerations at each stage, plus how to use LinkedIn to market at each stage of that buyer's journey. That's going to take maybe about 15 minutes. Overall, this training or presentation will take maybe about 30 minutes. So just to give yourself time, if you need to come back and watch it, fine. But I'm happy for those who are here right now. We're going to talk about the impact for 2022 and how to start to think about what you're doing on LinkedIn, how you're positioning yourself, and how you can use that to impact your 2022 for people in HR and sales and different divisions, HR specifically, right? How you can use that to now attract the talent in the division, the sales teams, how you can stand out above the noise. If you're, for most of us, marketers, how to now leverage that to drive sales. So that's going to take about 5 minutes, and then we'll do a wrap up. Okay. All right, so let's just talk about an overview of the buyer's journey. Let's talk about that really quickly. For most of you guys, this is a refresher, but I'd love to be able to go over that just so you can understand, especially when we're talking about the digital platform, a digital world, how we can start to understand how to leverage that on a place like LinkedIn. And when we think about the journey that people are going through. First stage of the buyer's journey, this is like the awareness stage, right? So just to give an example, I have never developed allergies, but I know there's so many people that when they move from, say, places like the Northeast to Florida, all of a sudden they develop allergies. So you may not know what it is in the beginning. You just know that you have, you're sneezing, you have itchy eyes, you know something's wrong, but you don't know what's wrong. And that's you're aware that there's a problem. So we're going to dig deep into each of these areas. You're aware that there's a problem. The second stage is now you're in a consideration stage. So you're aware and you start to do research, and now you're considering solutions. We'll dig deep into that. Now you're making decisions. What solution is going to be the best for you? And you can see how we can use this with any area of business, right? Now we have to consider retention stage. How are we going to retain them? How are we going to keep them within the organization as a client? And then we're going to move into brand advocacy and loyalty. A lot of people miss out on not doing that. And as a result, now they have to spend a lot more money in order to start from scratch again. What's the point? So we don't want to start from scratch. We want to make sure that we're now using our people that we have earned their business and earned their trust. We want to make sure that we're leveraging what they have in order to get in front of a wider audience, so there's less work on our part. So let's talk about how to market with LinkedIn at each of these stages. So first, we're going to talk about the consideration stage, the considerations of the first stage, which is the awareness stage. When we think about the awareness stage, as an example, when I gave an example of, allergy medicine, right? You start to have itchy eyes, you start to sneeze, and you know that something's going on, but I don't know what it really is, or I know what this is because I've heard about other people who just moved to Florida and they develop allergies, but what's going to be the best solution for me? So think about your buyers in two different ways. They're in two different categories, right? They just don't know they have a problem, or they know, and then they're not clear on how to fix the problem. So that's when the research begins. Time and time again, what I tend to see that people, when we go in for the sale, it's like at the very beginning, at this stage, this is not the stage where you're selling anyone. And it's also not at the final stage when they've already made their decisions and they've already looked into research with consideration. Most people are not starting at the awareness stage. And we have, I'm going to get you better data, but from Gartner research, they have about 75 to 85% of people, they've already made their decision before they actually reach out to someone in a sales division. So you have to start to think about, how can I now leverage this awareness stage to start to attract those people who have just found out they have a problem, or they have symptoms of a problem, but they're not quite aware, or they're not admitted to it yet. So let's talk about some ways that you can do just that. So content for the awareness stage, we have different things, right? We have, and I'll show you a few here, but I just want to go over the list so you have that in front of you. We have ebooks that you can use, you have video that you can use, you have white papers, you have industry reports, you have podcasts that you can use, and you have infographics. So now, when we think about, and, as an example, here's a white paper, right? It's about building confidence in this whole world of cybersecurity, which, if we just saw Biden's announcement, for those who have cybersecurity firms or they work for cybersecurity firms, this is a great time for you to be able to leverage what's about to happen or what's going on in the world right now, to get in front of your audience, to develop white papers, develop things that they will have a better understanding of the symptom that they probably have right now or they're not aware of, and letting them understand that something is going to happen and you're the solution. You're not selling anything yet. You're letting them know that you exist and you have an expertise in this. Same thing with the video, right? When in this noisy online world, for some people, they're really only just beginning to use LinkedIn, pre-pandemic, right? I always talk about people who are still living in 2019. I was just, three years ago, but they're still living in 2019, not realizing that being online and selling online and networking online, even though outside is opened back up, there's still a big opportunity in the online space. And if we're using the same marketing and we're using the same business development as we did in 2019, we're missing a lot of opportunities. So now when you think about this video that I did, how to stand out when everyone's an expert online. So this is about the awareness stage and content for the awareness stage with video. We also think about content for the awareness stage with infographics, right? So what could you share with your audience right now? And this is just stats and tools they can use to measure. What can you share with your audience right now that will help them to understand, okay, I have this problem. I know I need to fix it. Oh, here's this infographic. This is going to help me to understand why I have this problem. And now I can be better educated as I'm searching for a solution. Now I can be better educated to avoid the things that could possibly harm my business or my brand, right? So those are the types of content that you're considering when you talk about the awareness stage. Now let's talk about considerations for key number 2, which is the consideration stage. At this point, buyers, they're doing their research, right? So they figured out, okay, I have this problem. There's something going on. I need to fix it because I cannot get to the next step until I fix this, until I have this solution. I cannot grow. I cannot scale. I cannot do anything. I cannot get investor funding until I solve this particular problem. So one thing that I know that typically happens, especially for smaller organizations, when they're going after large contracts, the larger contracts, they like to know, who do you have as part of your team? For most organizations, if they're going to work with you or if they're going to partner with you on their larger contract, they want to make sure that you have an operations person, and they definitely want to make sure you have a CFO. So in considering these things, if you offer those services, how can you now be at the forefront for these companies who are potentially looking for that? And maybe these companies don't realize they're looking for that yet, but how can you be top of mind for the companies when they realize they're looking for that? So the focus right now, when we talk about the consideration stage, the focus right now is making sure that you stay top of mind. And you'll do this if you focus on social selling. So that's really being consistent, that's showing up on a regular basis, not spamming inboxes, not trying to sell your solutions, but really being focused on a social selling framework that's going to make sure they understand this is the industry expert. And when I say industry expert, you're an expert on their industry. So you understand the solution that they need to get to the next step. And then you also want to start to now use your content that focuses on you being a differentiator in the market. So what's your unique differentiator? How can you now compete in this noisy online space and really show up the right way? And here's a stat I was telling you about. 78% of salespeople who engage in social selling, they outsell their peers, of the peers who do not. And then 51% are more likely to hit quota. So I'll repeat that again. 78% of salespeople who engage in social selling, they outsell their peers who do not engage in that, and they're 51% more likely to hit quota. I mean, this is a no-brainer, right? I mean, here's the thing. So yeah, we still cold call, right? We still send emails. We still send the emails. However, if you were doing something every single day or every single week to stay top of mind during this consideration stage, how much more effective would that be? And it would lessen the amount of work that you're doing. So when we think about the consideration stage, now we're talking about, and I'll go through each of these, case studies, pricing guidelines, product demos, webinars. We see a lot of, and live, we have LinkedIn live events that you can do. And of course, FAQs. So when we talk about product demos, this is an example of you go into a website, right? And you're able to, you don't need a rep. So we're still in the consideration stage where I am not reaching out to anyone at this point. I'm still looking at my options. So we Google. So as I Google some solutions, your goal is, and we don't always want to use our website, our goal is that they find us on LinkedIn. So when they Google, typically when you're on LinkedIn, and for obviously if you're with me here, you're on LinkedIn, your name is going to show up next to a solution. Your name will either show up or it won't. So here's what you need to start to think about. If you do show up and they click on your profile, because they either click on your profile or if you do articles or newsletters, that's what they find. What are they going to think? How are they going to think about you? And what are they going to think when they actually see your profile? So before we do any of this, and this is what I help my clients with, before we do any of this, we make sure that their profile is really dialed in, it's optimized, it's sending the right message, it's positioning them the right way. So when someone does find you through the other platforms, it is very clear in their mind that you should be considered. Remember, you're still earning trust during this stage. So it's very clear in their mind that you should be considered. So this is an example of a product demo. So as a call to action, when we talked about the videos and we talked about different things, and even the live events that you're doing, and even something that I'm doing right here, right? This is considered almost like a webinar. When we think about that, we always want to have a call to action. And maybe one of your call to actions, you're not selling, but you're offering a free demo. And they don't necessarily want you to be there. I'm sorry to say. But no one wants to feel pressure. They want to be able to look in the privacy of their own space and make decisions that way. The interesting thing, I walk into a store and if someone says, and yeah, I'm looking for something in particular, actually nowadays, I just don't want to walk around and look. But typically, if someone says, well, can I help you? No, you can't help me. No, thanks. And they can probably help me. But if they say something specific like, tell me why you're in here today, you could either say, I'm just browsing, but can I help you to find something? I shop at Publix. I'm a Publix grocery loyalist. So as I'm checking out and as I'm closing out with my groceries, they always say, and they don't miss this, guys, because I always have a response, right? Did you find everything that you came in here for today? And my response is typically, yeah, I found that and more. I don't think Target does it, but Target's one of the brands I remember with that too. But Publix for sure. Every time you check out, they always say, did you find everything that you came in here for today? That's going beyond what the scope of what we're talking about. But I want you to understand that when your customers are browsing in the consideration stage, they do not want to be necessarily, they don't want to do it holding someone's hand. They want to be able to have access to do it on their own. So this is an example of a product demo from outreach.io. They do this buyer's journey in such an amazing way. You should really check them out. Other things when you're thinking about the consideration stage, like I mentioned to you, we have our LinkedIn live events at the bottom area, very beautifully done and set up. We have our LinkedIn live events, and we also have our webinars or things like that. So that's when you talk about the consideration stage. I think really if you have you're a product brand, you're a founder, the product demos are going to be what really can help to sell you, in addition to a few other things, right? So let's talk about key 3, which is the decision stage. So now your buyers they've done their research, and typically, I read that for buyers, they don't typically say no to you right now because they're not into you. They're not they're not ready to buy from you. It's because they're afraid they're going to make the bad decision. So the higher the dollar amount that they're spending, the longer it takes. Obviously, we know about sales cycles. The longer that it takes, and there's a possibility that someone will say no now, but in 6 months to a year, they may say yes. But mostly, that's why follow-up is very important, and really having these stages throughout your content is very important. But most likely, they're not making a decision right now because they can't it's hard for them. It's hard for them to make a decision because suppose they choose wrong, right? So your job is to make sure that you're making the decision for them as easy and as clear as possible. So they're now narrowing down their options for the best overall solution. Some of that could be features. Some of that could be price. Some of that, it could be other things. It could be who they already have a relationship with. It could be who their friends or coworkers or colleagues they suggested, right? So that's how we start to think about that. So when we think about the decision stage, now we think about customers' case studies, that's testimonials and case studies. So customer testimonials, customer case studies. We think about customer reviews, things like that, right? If they go to your web page, if they go to typically, I wouldn't put it on your LinkedIn, your personal page. I would actually add it to your company page. So you have your customer reviews, you have live product demos. So now you're doing one-on-one calls and you're walking them through a demo that's specific to their need. We have free trials. Free trials comes back from, I remember, internet dial-up, when we first started with internet dial-up. I'm trying to think of the company. It was, of course, AOL. You've got mail. Remember back in the days when AOL, when we had dial-up, right? So of course, dial-up was like and we didn't know better, but dial-up became the worst nightmare because if you were dialing up into the internet and someone picked up the phone while you were in the middle of it, you lost your connection. And along came AOL, and they taught us about high speed, but they also gave us a 30-day free trial. So what happens during those 30 days, guys? What happens during those 30 days? Typically what happens is that you get addicted to this way of life. So when you have this free trial, if it's done the right way, then now you have to start to think about, I can't give up this way of life. This is something that I really, really enjoy. So I just wanted to kind of like think about it that way, right? So let's think about some other ways. We have LinkedIn does this very well. And I always recommend, people always ask me when I do LinkedIn trainings in particular, they always say, well, should I get LinkedIn Sales Navigator? I say yes or no. If you're trained the right way on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it's a bargain. If it's not, you're wasting your money. However, LinkedIn gives you 30 days to use it for free in order to try it out, in order to learn it a little bit. I would always suggest that you do a training. You don't want to try and figure it out on your own because it definitely takes more than 30 days if you're trying to figure things out on your own. I was just having a conversation with someone about mentorship and coaching. And yeah, you don't really need to have a trainer or a coach. You can figure it out eventually, but you get there faster and you get there further if you have someone who's already an expert in that space. So LinkedIn has Sales Navigator. You have about 30 days, like I mentioned. And here are some other examples of companies that they tell you what the monthly fee is. So if you're thinking about a software product, if you're thinking about something that you're using for your business, you have a monthly fee depending on how many users. But then you're also, doing the free trial. And then once let's say 30 days, 14 days, some places just offer 7 days. You don't necessarily need to have 30 days. I think 7 days is typically enough. And then, of course, you have a comparison. When you're able to do the work for your potential buyer and you compare their different possible offers. So it's important to understand who are my competitors in the market. When you're able to compare their different offers and you show them, you lay it out for them, you make their decision a lot easier for them. All right. So the fourth stage, in respect of your time, I want to make sure that I'm getting through this, but I also want to make sure I'm not taking up a lot of your time. So now the fourth stage, congratulations. They have now become a customer. You have earned their trust. You have won their business. But it doesn't stop here. We want to start to strengthen that relationship so they gain more value and satisfaction from your product or service, right? So now when we think about that, we're thinking about follow-up calls and emails, and that's part of the customer support stage. So I recently bought a new software product, and they actually called me 3 days in just to see if I have any questions. They sent me an email right away. So that's a part of the onboarding stage. They sent me an email right away. They let me know that someone's going to be reaching out, and please let your people know that you'll be reaching out. They let me know someone will be reaching out to make sure that I know how to work it the right way, because the biggest fail is when a customer buys something, but they don't know how to use it the right way because they're just left to their own devices to figure it out. You do not want that. As part of the retention stage, which we're going to go now on to key number 5, you want to make sure that they become a fan of your product, of your services. So you have your follow-up calls and you have your emails, you have your onboarding emails, you have your blog posts that you can even share on LinkedIn, videos on how to use it that's private to them. And then you have recommendations for add-on products too, right? So let's think about the fifth consideration. Key number five is your brand loyalty stage. This is where you can really do some really great work. You can reduce your marketing cost. You can increase the audience that finds you. You can increase your visibility, increase your brand reputation if you do this right. So this is about strengthening the relationships with the customers that you won so that they're so excited about your product that they're actually doing the work for you. So they're talking to others about their experience. They're talking to others about how much they've saved, how productivity increased, how things changed in their life. One brand that does this, several brands that does this well, but just because I'm a big fan of Amex, one fan that does this really well is Amex, and depends on the card that you have. Obviously, you have different options. So this is part of the add-on, right? So you have different options where one big, and I think I just have the business card. I think I just have the gold business card. I went to the NBA All-Star game a few years ago, at least 5 years ago. I received an email from, and I didn't know about this. I received an email or a notification from Amex that, and of course, Amex knows your every move because you're using the card to swipe where you are, that they were having a private party at the actual NBA, and I think it was in Orlando, so part of Disney. They were having a private party, and I was invited to the private party. So think about things that you can keep that your people will get excited about, and you can really start to advocate, build brand advocates, and really get to that loyalty stage, right? So now when we have considerations, I just want to invite you also. Like I mentioned, I work on this with my clients. I do training on Sales Navigator. I also help my clients to better target their high value accounts on LinkedIn and market to them. So I want you to start to think about different considerations. As we wrap this up, think about how you can use this as someone in HR. You can now use this to attract and retain top talent. You can now use this obviously in sales to attract and retain your existing client base and to get more. And also in HR, you can also use your existing employees to attract more of your talent. You can use this in marketing. You can use this in all of the different sales functions. So just wanted to share that with you guys today. I hope you really got some value from that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me here on LinkedIn. I am always here on LinkedIn. Or once again, you have my phone number, you have my email, you have my LinkedIn information. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions about this process at all, okay? Like I mentioned before, this is a weekly series. I will be focused on something else next week. So I hope that you join me. And if you are on the replay, so excited that you're here, and go ahead and share this with others within your team and on your field of work. I'll chat with you soon, okay?